Starliner Media. Starliner Media presents Music Night at the Majestic with your host, Michael Boswell.
All right, it's time once again for Music Night at the Majestic, and with us tonight, Sasha Prendes. Sasha, welcome to the show.
Hello. Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Well, hey, thanks for making the time. Now is a very busy time for you.
It's so
You got
busy. It's so
going
crazy.
on.
Yeah, I know. I just literally got back from dancing and doing choreography and learning all of these new steps. It's been really, really exciting.
I would think. Plus, you've got the Shake This that is doing very well on the World Indie Music Chart and several others as well.
Yeah, it's doing so good. Genuinely, like the response to Shake This has been amazing, and the fact that people are calling and asking me to perform at their fashion shows and sit front row, and like just all these dreams of mine are coming true right now. And it's just like, yeah, we didn't know Shake This was going to be like the one that really resonated with the crowd. So really happy about it.
Well, as you should be. I'll tell you, before we get to it, and we'll get into the whole story behind the song and all that, but as we often say on the show, every artist's journey starts somewhere. Where was that somewhere for you?
So my journey started, I would have to say, when I was a peanut, when I was a little kid, under the age of 5, singing and dancing and watching Barney. And I lived in New Jersey. I was born in Jersey, and my family's from Cuba. So that's kind of where it all like really started. I remember being like literally a toddler and like dancing and singing and putting on shows and again and again with all the sing along videos. And then we moved to Kansas when I was 5, and that was just a whole other, broadening of my music experience, being exposed to country music and growing up in such an interesting time, like the 2003 was a great year for music, and just a lot of really cool things happened in Kansas. I had a really beautiful childhood, so I've been influenced by every genre of music.
Well, besides Barney, who would some of those influences be?
So, oh man, we go back. Miley Cyrus, like as a kid, as a preteen, being in Kansas, remembering like, what do I do? How do I get involved in music? My parents had no idea. And I just admired her so much for being able to act and sing and dance and tour and be able to do all of that. As I got older, Sarah Bareilles, she has this like beautiful, like jazzy New York croon vibe. And I definitely learned some things from her. Taylor Swift, vulnerable songwriting, Drake, vulnerable songwriting, and Jennifer Lopez, and Britney Spears, just as like, all these superstars who all brought something different to the table. I feel like I've been inspired by, little pieces of me are inspired by them.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned your Cuban heritage. Are there any Cuban artists that have been influential on your music?
Oh my God, Celia Cruz, like absolute icon. And I just remember growing up listening to her, and like that's the one like OG Spanish artist that I know like almost all the words to all of her songs, which is really cool. And I grew up singing and dancing and like attempting to salsa dance as a little kid. And yeah, very, 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 very good memories.
I had a feeling that that's what you would say.
Oh, did you?
It's just a guess.
The best.
Now, tell me this. Do you remember what was the first song that you mentioned, like, doing little shows and stuff? What was the first song that you did a show for?
So the song that I was obsessed with as like a peanut was a Kiss from a Rose by Seal. And then the other one was, yeah, right? Kiss from a rose, da, da, da. And I'd be this little kid like, ooh, the more I get of you. And I didn't even know the words, And then who else? The Selena song. Late at night when all the world's sleeping, I stay up and think of you. And like, I was a little girl just singing out the window, pretending I was in a music video. So yeah, those are my two, like, how random, right? Those are like the most random songs.
Now, how old were you when you did your first recordings, and how did that whole session come about?
So, oh my gosh, recording my first song took like 20 years just to like really get it down. I remember my dad being like, I'll take on extra work just to be able to, pay for studio time, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, Dad, I don't even know what that like means, right? It's like, you need a producer and then they have to make the music. And I have the songs and the words in my head, but I didn't know what to do. And so in college, I had met someone who had a little like at home, like apartment set up, and we recorded like my first cover track, and it was Gravity by Sarah Bareilles. So pretty sure I still have it. I need to go back and find it, but pretty sure I still have it. And then to actually put out a song, it wasn't until I dropped Brooklyn in 2019. So
All
it's
right.
like to be able to compete at the level, to feel comfortable, to have a song out, to feel comfortable, having people listen to it and feel like you're in competition with the big dogs. I didn't feel that way until this song, Shake This. But even before that, it was like, I was close, and I finally felt comfortable and felt professional enough to release my first record. So yeah, the first song took the longest. The longest.
Well, you mentioned Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
How did that come to be?
Brooklyn is one of my favorite songs. Before Shake This, I wrote a lot of sad girl music, and my stuff's pretty intense, and I went through a lot of shit. And so Brooklyn was really nice because I had met this boy from South Brooklyn, and just, through mutual friends. And we all woke up the next day at the house, and everyone had to go to work, and he looked at me and he was like, have you ever seen Brooklyn? Like, have you seen Brooklyn? And I was like, no, I just moved here from Kansas like a month ago. And so neither one of us went to work that day, and he showed me all around Brooklyn, and it was like the most beautiful thing. And like, we didn't have our first kiss until like the very, very end of the date. And it was just like pizza, LMBs, Brooklyn Bridge, taking pictures, like walking along the water, like, full on like randazzos on, Coney Island, like literally took me everywhere. And so I came home and sat on the floor and had my guitar and just Brooklyn, Brooklyn. And it was born. And so that's kind of what started it. It was like that beautiful first time feeling. So it's my love song to him, but it's also my anthem for Brooklyn. And that was my romantic introduction to this incredible place.
Well, it looks like you were having a lot of fun shooting the video.
Yeah, I had so much fun shooting the video. There's multiple videos. Did you see both of them, or three of them, two of them? I don't remember.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, talk about the songs that you've done. How about Yellow Sweater?
I love Yellow Sweater. Oh my God, I love that you're asking me this. This is so fun because we're getting like super personal. Yellow Sweater is about a boy that I had totally fallen for, and he was from Spain, and we were kind of like, we had a situationship, which is like super popular nowadays, right? It's like you're together, but you're not together. And then looking back, you're like, we were totally together. There was just no label, which is, this complicated dating world that we live in now. And we would go out, he would get drunk, and then he would like say he loved me, and like the power, the connection was real, but then I kind of knew that like it wasn't gonna work out. So the song is about indifference. I'm like, I've been wondering, I've been hoping, are we good? Oh wait, no, that's a different song. That's another song about him. Oops. So Yellow Sweater is love your lies, can't decide. And that was about my indifferences. Like, I loved what he would say to me and how he would treat me and like the connection that we had, but I also knew it wasn't true. And I was in this position of like, well, do I stay or do I go? You know, or do I go? And eventually I left, but brokenhearted, you know. But it was just capturing that moment of indifference.
Yeah. Now, how about Sail Away?
Sail Away. Wow, this is really cool. I was actually having an intense conversation with one of my best friends last night about Sail Away, because my songs are all about someone. They're like letters to people that saying things that I was never able to say to them in person. And so it kind of gives me this sense of closure and the feeling of having the last word, you know, and that's totally the ego talking, but it's kind of like, hey, you never really listen. So if you do listen, it's out here, you know, and everyone knows now how I feel. But Sail Away is amazing. I had a first love of mine who lived across the world. And I just remember us parting ways because of distance and because of our goals and chasing our dreams. And we were just like, you know, if it's meant to be, it'll happen. And I just remember kind of like this back and forth. And like every time he would contact me, I would just be like, okay, he's my end all be all. And I would just kind of like date in the interim, but like having him as like the final goal, the final rose. And he wasn't, but he kind of like breadcrumbed me. So Sail Away was like, even though I wasn't fully sailed away, like my heart was still in it. It was like a cry for help / a desperate ask to let me go. I don't want to know. Just let me go. And even though low-key I didn't want him to let me go, and I think you can kind of hear that in the song, because I kind of felt like I was lying to myself when I wrote some of those lyrics. It was like, this is what I want to feel, but I don't feel this way yet. And so listening to it now, it's like, okay, I'm good. But, you know, it's deep. It's deep, Michael. That was so deep.
Well, to tell you, you had both like the full production versions, but then you also did stripped down versions of Yellow
Yes.
Sweater in Sail Away. How did the stripped down versions come about?
So I was introduced to an incredible producer, musician, Hanan Rubenstein. And he's actually the one who introduced me to Dee Lawrence, my producer now. And it's like my mentor's mentor, which is so crazy. So Hanan worked, trained with Dee for years and then introduced us last year, which was amazing. And so, but before that, I had met Hanan and we had done some records together. And this was a project, just him and I, and he played every single instrument. And I said, all these songs started like me on the floor with the guitar. I don't know what it is about being on the floor and writing music, but like that's just where I am. Or the kitchen floor. I don't know why I happen to cry on the kitchen floor, but it's just like it's just a place, right? And he was like, let's do it. So we did acoustic versions of all of my songs 2-3 years later. And during the pandemic, right at the beginning of the pandemic, we recorded the songs and then dropped them a year later. And it was just such a great feeling to have those versions, because I love bass. I used to play the bass in the orchestra. I love hip hop. I love instrumentation. I love all of it. But there's something like really nice to just, hearing the story and hearing the words and hearing the happy, the sad, the pain. And I think that's what I love about acoustic music. And so I called it Stripped Down, because it was to the bare bones. It was like reading out of my diary. Slightly uncomfortable. That's what we do. So,
Well, you mentioned, sitting on the floor and writing. When you write, are you, generally speaking, because I know it changes, all the time, a lyrics first or a music first writer?
they happen at the same time. So it'll just like come out. Like, like with Yellow Sweater, I just remember like just being like, when I saw you in that sports coat with that sweet little yellow sweater. And I was like, ooh, that's kind of cool, and then I take that and then say maybe the next part I just freestyled, and it was like met me by the elevator. And I'm like, that was cool, but I'm not going to use that. And so I'll like take clips of the freestyles that I do, and then we'll kind of follow it. I'll be like, ooh, I like that run. Let's keep that in the chorus, and then we'll repeat that, and then you start getting funky with it.
Yeah.
But it happens at boom.
Tell me this: did you have formal training for songwriting?
I did not. Well, I guess you could say yes, because I was in the orchestra as a kid, so I was, reading music. I played the string bass for 5 years. I was just like this little peanut with this like massive instrument. And so that was really cool. And I think that helped me a lot. And so now, I can still read music. I can play a little bit of guitar and follow along, which is pretty cool. But for the most part, it's just like this freeness of singing and songwriting. And then I started getting training several years ago. When I moved to New York, I got a coach, and I highly recommend anybody who wants to sing to get a coach. And if you need one, I have some amazing ones.
I don't think they could help me.
Dude, you can totally learn how to sing. You can learn how to like carry the tune and like stay in the key.
Well,
Totally.
they'd have to be awfully good to make me sound good. I'll say that.
I have faith in them. They're savage.
Well, I'll tell you some of the other songs that you've had out. How did you come to record "War with Me"?
War with Me is one of my favorite tracks. So I met an amazing producer and artist. His name is Krona. And we met during the pandemic at like a secret party, because, everything was closed, and I was here in New York and there wasn't anything that you could do. So there was like a secret apartment party. You had to know the passcode and like all this craziness. So he's in this room where he has like this mini studio setup, and he's just kind of like playing some beats and doing some stuff. And I just started freestyling. And I was like, da 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 da. And then he was like, that's actually really sick. And then he's like, I hear the words "war with me" and blah, 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 blah. And so that's why in the song, it says, ghosting me should be a crime. Quarantine, oh, you got time. Like, there's no excuse for you to not reach out to me because you're home and you're locked in your house too. So why are you not texting me back? So that's like a piece of the song. And then we ended up just working on it throughout several months, about a year. And then finally, put it out. And it's so fun. It's beyond that too. It's just like, you don't want to start with me. Not just because I'm a black belt, but because I'm really nice, but don't push my buttons. And that's where that song came from. It's for anyone who's ever, hurt me, tried to hurt me, and tried to come at me. It's like, you don't want this smoke.
You better think twice.
Seriously.
Well, earlier you'd mentioned your dad, and you mentioned black belt. It was through him that you got into Taekwondo, correct?
Yes, 100%. My father, for sure. My dad is one of the most incredible people in my life, and I actually tear up every time I talk about him on interviews because I just love my dad, and I haven't seen him in like almost 2 weeks, so I'm a little, but my father is incredible and laid such a strong foundation for our family. And one of the biggest things was, obviously don't quit. You're not going to quit, but try everything. And I was in dance, and I did competitive dance for several years, and it was not the most fun activity for me. I feel like socially, there was a lot of like drama, and there was always like mean people. And I just didn't really understand why it had to be like that. And then my dad's like, hey, down the street, there was a Taekwondo school, and he became really good friends with Master G. And I started doing both. I'm 11 years old. I would leave dance and I would go to Taekwondo, starting as a white belt. I'm like figuring this out. But I was like really smiley. So everyone would call me, like, oh yeah, smiley Sasha or whatever. And I was just a super feminine girly girl, but like I loved to kick ass. And I got really good and eventually left dance. And then started like competing in Olympic sparring with my dad and my mom and my little brother. And it became, a 4 times a week thing, and training at 5:00 in the morning on Saturdays. It was like full blown commitment. And I am so grateful for the training, for the team, for Mr. and Mrs. G, like it does not leave you.
Yeah, well, you've used that as the basis for your philanthropy.
I do. Oh, yeah, I do. And it's like, I think it's really important for women to know how to defend themselves. And self-defense, I have learned, isn't just from like whooping ass, right? It isn't just like being able to do all this cool stuff. I learned recently, it starts with, where's the exit? You know, where is the exit in the room? And if I'm here talking to a guy, or I'm at a bar or whatever, and like if he's in front of me, like maybe position myself in a different way so that if I do have to make a move, I don't have to fight this person. You know, I can kind of already be. And I was like, when I heard this from some coaches, I was like, oh my gosh, like seems like common sense, but it's not, right? Because we're focused on having a good time and meeting people and having fun and having a drink. So I think that it's definitely like a double-edged sword, right? And it sucks that women have to do that. But I think it's super important to learn that. And so I'm partnering with the Luisa Diaz Foundation and a bunch of other amazing coaches and fighters, UFC fighters, and we're going to be putting together an event of sorts to help with Luisa's Foundation, which is rescuing people from human trafficking and like rehabilitating victims of domestic violence. And it's very, very cool. So that's a huge, huge issue right now. And it is like front and center. And I believe it always should have been front and center, but I'm just so glad that it's getting the press and the attention that it needs. And I want to be a part of it. So yeah, big things coming philanthropically.
That's very, very excellent. Very nice that that you're involved in something like that.
Thank you. I've always wanted to be like, and finally I get to use my platform. And you know, it's crazy. Everyone's like, you're a black belt? I'm like, yeah. Like, they're like, why didn't you tell us? I was like, it's not something I just,
You don't just bring that up in a conversation. You know what? Could you pass the potatoes? And by the way, I'm a black belt.
yeah, exactly. So funny. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, to get back to the music, you mentioned having very diverse influences. What is a song that's either like in your collection or playlist or whatever? What's the one song that most people would probably be surprised that song is on your playlist?
That is a tough one because I listen to some very eclectic music. I would say,
have to narrow down to one. You can give a few.
I can give one. I would say High School Musical, like Disney Channel, records. Like we're soaring, flying, like that kind of stuff, like that OG like musical movies on Disney. Like I have a lot of that stuff. And Veggie Tales. Bangers. The silly songs with Larry, hilarious. Still funny.
Yeah. Now you mentioned country as being is one of your influences. Who are a few of the country artists that have helped shape your music?
Carrie Underwood, for sure. I love belting out her songs. Love singing her songs. They're hard songs, so I feel like really accomplished when I can like hit everything. Taylor Swift, when she started out in country and, was just this like cute girl in high school who wrote about what it was like being in high school. And I was like, this is exactly what it's like. So that was super helpful to like watch her, really pour out her feelings and express, how things really were at the time. And I started doing the same thing and carried that with me throughout. Toby Keith, legend, absolute legend. He actually inspired a song of mine called Paris. And it's really random. Someday I plan to like put them side by side. They sound nothing alike, but the certain part of his song inspired me. So there's just a lot of like different artists in country that really got me hyped about music.
Yeah. Tell me this, who would be the artist whose music is the oldest that you listen to frequently?
I think Celia, and way before Celia would be Frank Sinatra. I listen to Frank Sinatra almost every day.
What's your favorite Sinatra song?
My favorite song is My Way, and that is my grandfather and I song. And also When Somebody Loves You is our songs. And so that's kind of always been our thing. And like he'll just be like, when somebody love you, and I'll be like, all the way. And it's like this really cute thing that we do back and forth. And those are the only words he knows in English. Like those are the only words he knows. And we sing together. And so, yeah, I listen to Frank Sinatra. I love that like old school classic New York croon. It's beautiful.
Do you have a favorite era in Sinatra's career?
You know, I do and I don't, because he just continued to like grow throughout his thing. I have like several songs, you know, from each project that I absolutely love, you know, from The Way You Look Tonight, My Way, When Somebody Loves You, Strangers in the Night, Autumn Leaves, or Autumn
Yeah,
in
Autumn Leaves.
Vermont.
Yeah.
Right? There's a few different ones, or Winter in Vermont. I mean, it just goes on. Like there's just so many cool and beautiful songs that he created that I've just loved to like practice to. Great for
Yeah.
like
See,
breathing technique.
I gravitate probably most frequently to the Count Basie era, but
Okay.
the Nelson Riddle, era as well. But then you mentioned the reprise, songs of the '60s, and when you think about, how many years he'd already been in the business at that point, and he was still, as you said, growing and changing and adapting. Yeah, pretty impressive.
Right? It's just like it's so cool. And I think that's the beauty about being an artist, and especially when you are on that rise. It's like they see everyone can see where you started and gets to follow you along the journey and then see how far you go. And then it's really fun to like parallel them and see, you know, the cohesiveness, the consistency. It's like, yeah, it's still me. You know, I'm just not even switching it up, just like, you know, just vocally more powerful and lyrically stronger. And it's cool. It's really amazing to watch.
Yeah, well, anytime you've got an artist who can do different styles or even, subgenres, if you will, and yet it's still distinctly them. Yeah. Uh, Buddy Holly, for example, could, rock out with Peggy Sue, but then he can also do a lush ballad like True Love Ways, or do the Spanish influenced Heartbeat. And even though there are three very distinctly different sounds that are all clearly identifiable as that's Buddy Holly.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel that way about my music. And it's funny because working with D, there's certain things that I do, you know, in the studio. I'm an ooher. I'll be like, ooh, like randomly. And I have these things and he'll laugh at me because I'll like, you know, incorporate them into my live performance. And they're kind of like my tags. You know, like rappers and Latin artists will have tags, you know, they'd be like, Bad Bunny, baby, like at the beginning of the song. Mine's like, yeah, Sasha Prendes on the track. You know, it's like I do these little things. And then also just vocally throughout the songs. It's nice because I've had a lot of people be like, oh, wow, yeah, okay. That's Sasha. Like that's a thing that you do. And my coach will be like, you could change this, but this is kind of you. And I'm like, what is this? But it's awesome. Like I feel like, you know, you can't change everything. You have to, there's some things that you can't change that are just a part of your movement, your voice, you know?
Right. Well, you mentioned like the opening tags being, a prevalent style in Cuban music. For you, do you gravitate more to mambo or salsa?
Salsa. Salsa is my vibe. For sure. For sure. And I'd say I'm more of a novice. Like I have the rhythm, I have, you know, the movements, but I've taken a few classes and I'm like, this shit is super hard, but it's awesome. And in Cuba, everybody can dance. I mean, from like 3-year-olds to 95-year-olds, like everybody knows how to dance. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, tell you what, getting back to your music, touched on it briefly. Shake This. Tell us the story behind the song that is the one that's breaking you out.
So exciting. So Shake This happened, you know, essentially overnight. My producer, D. Lawrence, he had this, fully produced song ready to go, and it was just kind of there. And him and I were both, having this conversation, how we were like, we need to shake this. We were both kind of going through some things, and they were kind of similar. And he just was like, I need to shake this. And he calls me the next morning, and he's like, get to the studio right now. I have this new song. Excuse me. He goes, here are the words. Shake this up. He's like, just get there. And I was like, cool. Good thing this is how I work. I love working on the spot. I'm like, yes, let's go. And a song was, he like literally wrote it like right there. And then I would put my own thing on it. And then we were like, okay, actually, this is really dope. And everyone else loved it. But it was just one of those like, fly by night, like, oh, boom, let's just, I have this moment of inspiration, like, let's go. And I'm like, yes, I'm down. And then it happens to be the one that everyone really liked. And we decided to put that one out in both languages, in English and Spanish.
Yeah. Now the video for the song, how did you make the video?
The video is hilarious. It's like multiple versions of myself, like corporate Sasha, like business Sasha, at home Sasha, spa Sasha, sexy, cool, chilling at home Sasha. Like it was like multiple personalities all coming together in one. It was pretty funny. And we did it all on a green screen, which was also really cool. I'd never done that before. So, I'm like talking to myself and there's nobody there, like funny things like that. The video was so fun to take.
Yeah, it looks like you were having a lot of fun.
You have to be, right? That's like, why are we doing? But yes, no, I was having a blast. It was exhausting though. You're talking like a 15-hour day for 3 days. It was a lot.
Yeah, well, when you're playing multiple characters, if you will, you've got the setup and everything for each one. So that's basically a separate shoot for every part of you that you were playing.
Yeah. Back, hair and makeup, completely switch it up, completely wipe off the makeup, do it again. It was a lot. It was fun though.
Yeah. Well, this is all the different talk about all the different fashion changes and stuff. You've got Fashion Week coming up. Tell us about that.
I do have Fashion Week. We just keep getting calls right now for like one thing after another. So the calendar's filling up real fast, and this will be my first time performing at fashion shows and my first time sitting front row. So this is like crazy, but I love it.
as you should. Well, tell me this, Sasha. Are you going to be doing any touring?
So I feel like tours already started. I've been, back and forth between New York and Miami and doing pop-up events and gallery shows. And, this year so far, the last several months have been crazy. And now with the fall coming, it's getting really busy. So I think we're going to do, an East Coast tour, for now, and eventually going to be traveling to wherever the songs are being played the most. And a lot of that are in like random cities in the US and then also abroad. It's like the Spanish version is like kicking butt. So I'm excited to like get out there, get to Europe, get to South America, say what up, shake this, So
yeah. Well, you mentioned Spanish versions. In
Yes.
the songs, you will switch between English and Spanish within the same song. How easy is it for you to just go from one language to the next all within one song?
It's actually really easy because that is how I speak Spanish. I speak Spanglish, like being born in the States and then moving to Kansas. I wasn't around a lot of Spanish speakers growing up, and my parents spoke very good English, and we definitely like assimilated, and, it was awesome, but we still kept our Cubanness. And it affected me a little bit language wise to stay as fluent as I was when I had first gotten there. So I definitely lost a little bit of it and have been bringing it back. And so if I don't understand something or I don't know how to say something, I'll speak the whole thing in Spanish, and then the one word, I'll be like, I don't know, I'll be like, él es un poquitico emotionally unavailable, and like, and so it's like, it's just funny. And I'm constantly learning and practicing all the time. And, I speak fluently with my grandparents and constantly practice. And it's awesome. I want to keep that alive.
Yeah. Tell me this, for the young people, what advice would you have for them as they're in their bedroom, use a hairbrush for a microphone, dreaming of big things? What advice do you have for them?
Don't quit. If there's one thing that I've learned from being a fighter, is that at the end of the day, it's not about necessarily who's the best, it's who can last the longest, right? Because if you're still going and it's round after round after round, you could be the best, but if you don't have the stamina, you're not going to win. That's really what it comes down to when you're like, neck and neck like that. And so keep building your stamina if it's something you really want to do, and know that there are going to be a lot of sacrifices and a lot of risk, and pray. Like God is your best friend when you're scared shitless, and it's, don't give up, stay strong, keep up your stamina, pray, and have fun. Like you have to love it. Like it shouldn't be this thing that's like this grueling thing. Like you need to get some sort of satisfaction high from it, but also like there's so much more that I want to do with my music. So what was helpful for me was to really write down, like, what are my long-term goals and how do I get there? How do I help more people? I love to help and help kids, help cats. Like I feel so small, like, oh, I can't do enough. But with my music and my platform and the things that I believe in and my foundation that I grew up with and my culture, doing music allows me to do other things as well. So y'all, write down your goals, write down your philanthropies, things that you want to do, how you want to change the world. You want to retire your parents, like all types of things, and make your music and make your art. Like it's possible. And you can do it. You just have to like believe in yourself, work really hard, and don't quit. Know where you want to go. And then like watch.
Where do you want to go?
You'll just go way past where you thought you could go.
Well, that said, where do you want your career to go from this point?
I want to go all the way. I want to go all the way, and I'm not even sure what that completely means, but that's the beautiful part of uncertainty and the unknown, right? Like, when people say like, when your wildest dreams come true, and like people who are super successful, like, I didn't even know I would get this far. Like this was the goal. And so I don't know the future, but I just know I too will never give up and will continue to spread positive messages and give people, music from my heart, from my soul. And if it resonates with them and it, gives them a hug from me, then, I just want people to be like, Sasha just gets me, like she understands me, because that's exactly what I would say about all these other artists that inspired me and that were there for me through, some of the roughest and best times of my life.
Yeah. Well, tell me this, Sasha, is there anything that we haven't touched on that you want to make sure that we do before we bring this to a close?
Stay tuned for new music, you guys. If you want to follow me, of course, you can find me at sashaprendes.com. You can sign up for my newsletter, which has like VIP opportunities, upcoming performances, new merch, and, early pre-saves of releases. And then of course, follow me on social media. I'm constantly doing new things and traveling, and yeah, things are just now popping off. So
all right, sounds good. Well, Sasha, we appreciate you taking the time to join us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This was so much fun.
Well, thank you. All right. Well, on that note, everyone, we're going to bring this to a close. Sasha, thanks for being here. Everybody, thanks for watching. Have a good night.
This has been Music Night at the Majestic with Michael Boswell. If you enjoyed this edition of Music Night at the Majestic, follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and at musicnight.net. Music Night at the Majestic is a copyright production of Starliner Media. Any use of the accounts and descriptions of this program, its audio or visual content, without the express written consent of Starliner Media is prohibited. Thank you for joining us this evening. We'll see you next time for Music Night at the Majestic. This is your announcer speaking.